Something went seriously wrong on live TV. A Sky News host stopped playing nice, pulled out the receipts, and absolutely dismantled Labor's story in real time. No spin, no escape, just one brutal question. If there's nothing to hide, why won't they answer? Welcome to Power and Policy UK, the channel where political spin gets challenged, media moments get exposed, and the real power games in Westminster are broken down without the fluff. The moment exploded onto live television without warning, the kind of exchange that makes producers wince and viewers lean closer to the screen. What was supposed to be another routine political segment suddenly turned into a blistering on-air takedown as a Sky News host openly challenged Keir Starmer and the Labour Party over what were described as glaring inconsistencies, evasions, and a pattern of carefully managed silence. No sugarcoating, no polite detours, just a direct line of attack that cut straight through the usual talking points. It started with a simple question, the sort politicians hear every day. But instead of accepting the standard response, the host stopped the conversation cold. Viewers watched as claims were read back word for word, followed by earlier statements that appeared to contradict them. The tension was immediate. This wasn't framed as a minor misunderstanding or a slip of the tongue. It was presented as something far more serious. The accusation was clear. The public was not being told the full truth, and the Labour leadership was hoping no one would notice. What made the exchange so striking was how methodical it was. The host didn't raise their voice or rely on theatrics. Instead, they calmly laid out a timeline, comparing what Labour figures had said months ago with what they were saying now. Each example landed like a hammer blow. The suggestion was that these weren't isolated errors, but part of a broader effort to control the narrative while avoiding accountability. At the center of it all was Keir Starmer himself. The Sky News segment zeroed in on his leadership style, questioning whether his carefully crafted image of competence and integrity could survive this level of scrutiny. Viewers were reminded of promises made during leadership campaigns, policy positions that appeared to shift quietly, and explanations that seemed to change depending on the audience. The host pressed on one central point. If the story is solid, why does it keep changing? The phrase cover-up was never used lightly. It was framed as a conclusion drawn from patterns, not a casual insult. According to the analysis presented live on air, key questions had gone unanswered for weeks. Requests for clarity were met with vague statements. Press teams issued carefully worded responses that addressed everything except the core issue. And when challenged directly, the answers appeared rehearsed, almost designed to run down the clock rather than inform the public. Social media erupted almost instantly. Clips of the exchange spread within minutes, with viewers praising the host for asking what many felt were obvious questions that had been ignored elsewhere. Others accused the segment of being overly aggressive. But even critics seemed to agree on one thing. It was impossible to watch without feeling that something important had been exposed. The host also zoomed out to a bigger issue, one that resonated far beyond a single interview. What does it say about modern politics when tough questions are treated as hostile acts? When journalists are expected to accept vague assurances instead of evidence? The implication was uncomfortable but powerful. If leaders can avoid scrutiny simply by repeating slogans, democracy itself becomes weaker. Labour's defenders were quick to push back, insisting that there was no deception, only complex policy development and the realities of opposition politics. They argued that changing circumstances require flexibility and that critics were deliberately misrepresenting nuanced positions. But the Sky News host anticipated that defense, pointing out that evolution is not the same as contradiction, and transparency is not optional when trust is on the line. One particularly striking moment came when the host asked why certain documents or details had not been released earlier. The response, or lack of one, spoke volumes. A pause hung in the air, the kind that feels much longer on live TV. When the answer finally came, it only seemed to raise more questions. Viewers could sense it. This was not the confident clarity of a party in control of its story. The segment ended with a stark warning. If Labor wants to present itself as a credible alternative government, it cannot rely on image management alone. Voters, the host argued, are more informed and more skeptical than ever. Attempts to gloss over uncomfortable facts are likely to backfire, especially when challenged in real time on national television. For many watching, the exchange crystallized a growing unease about political honesty across the board. It wasn't just about Labor or Keir Starmer. It was about a system where accountability often feels optional. Seeing a mainstream broadcaster push back so forcefully felt, to some, like a rare moment of journalistic muscle. Whether this moment will have lasting consequences remains to be seen. Political scandals come and go, and public attention moves fast, but this wasn't a viral clip built on outrage alone. It was a detailed, evidence-driven confrontation that left viewers with a simple, unsettling question. If there's nothing to hide, why not answer plainly? In the days following the broadcast, calls grew louder for clearer explanations and fuller disclosures. Commentators across the spectrum weighed in, some applauding the scrutiny, others warning against what they saw as trial by television. Yet the damage, at least in terms of perception, may already have been done. Once the idea of a cover-up enters the conversation, it's hard to erase. What this moment ultimately showed is the power of live TV when it's used without fear. No edits, no spin, no second chances, just questions, answers, and the space between them. And for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, that space suddenly felt uncomfortably wide. You've been watching Power and Policy UK. If you want sharp analysis, real accountability, and politics without the filter, hit like, subscribe, and stay locked in.